So in this video, we're going to look at the MVVM architecture for developing applications. It stands for Model, View, View Model, and is simply a way of organizing an application so it runs efficiently, and it also gives us a method of structuring and organizing all the different aspects that make up our application. So let's start with M for model. The model describes information. So information is a collection of data. So for example, a student is considered information, but it is described by its data, first name, surname, etc. In future applications or future videos, we're going to be building an application with postcodes. Now, a postcode can be described by its information, where you might have the 4-digit number, the location for that postcode, and so on. So the model is a description of the information that groups the data that makes up that object. Next is the view. Now, an example of view you might already be familiar with is the content view. The view is the user interface. It is what we look at on the screen and interact with. It allows us to access the functionality of the application, whether it be the data or the functionality of the device itself. The view, though, does avoid the heavy lifting of downloading data from the internet, storing it in a database. Essentially, any function that doesn't change the way the screen looks, it shouldn't be inside the view. It should be sitting inside of the view model. And we generally call this the data manager. And as the name suggests, it manages data. It is the back end of the application, a portion of the app that you just won't see. The user will only be able to interact with the user interface, and it interacts with the data manager to get all the data and functions that run behind the scenes. Now, this isn't really in the MVVM structure, but we will be running a database in the future. This is used for what we call persistence, storing the data so it's available after the application has been closed and removed from the device's memory. So if we were to say, type in a number into a calculator, if we were to quit that application, because there is no persistence, when we reopen it, the calculator will start with the number 0 again. For basic applications, such as our postcodes application, we can store all the data on the device itself. So to see how these objects interact, it's best shown in a different diagram because it's not linear in the way they interact. So to start with, the view will want to display information. Information is contained in the model. So the view will talk to the model and ask a simple question: what is a postcode? What information is available? What functionality do you have? So it might have the location, the latitude and longitude coordinate. And the view will ask the model what that information is and it will then use that on the screen. Similarly, the view model will access the data through a URL request object and access a server to download the data in JSON format. Once it has that JSON data, the view model needs to know how on earth to convert that data into something that Swift understands. Since the model is describing the data, it's able to convert the JSON into a postcode object. Once it has the data, the view model will then send it off to the view and allow it to display it accordingly. At some stage, the user may interact with the view and select a particular postcode. We therefore might need more information, to which the view model we'll go search that for information. That information is contained inside the database. So when we download the data from the internet and convert it into a postcode object, we'll insert it through an SQL insert query. When we draw that information out, we'll get tabular data through the select query. So you can see everything is going through the view model. The key here is to start at the most simplest structure, which is our model. It is at the heart of our application, and without this data structure, it is difficult to display information on the screen. This is where we're going to go to next.